and today my guest is Divine Harmony. Divine is Vine, we know that, but she is an astrologer, a writer, and a mother of a beautiful daughter. So welcome, Divine.
Thank you
I'm
for
glad we get
having me.
another opportunity to do this.
Yes.
Yeah, but that's good.
Yes.
It's a beautiful day. It's not too
Mhm.
hot,
No.
and
Beautiful here in Topanga.
yes, beautiful Topanga. Beautiful, beautiful. I want to talk to you about astrology, and I also want to talk to you about um, the kind of astrology that you do, and how you do it. So, could you tell me a little bit about astrology? Just a brief what astrology is,
Mhm.
and whatever how you use it.
Okay.
Okay.
Astrology is the study of the stars,
Okay.
the cosmos, actually. And it's an art and it's a science.
Mhm.
Um, there's calculations and practical logical things like this planet, this star is located in this portion of the sky and moves at this rate. It's very
Mhm.
logical, but
Mhm.
there's a very deeply intuitive aspect to reading the stars or
Okay.
divining the stars,
Mhm.
um, that you need to have in addition to the logical practical part in order
Mhm.
to be um, good at astrology.
Okay.
And the way that I view astrology is, I do Western, first of all. There's so
Okay.
many different types of astrology. There's Vedic, there's Chinese, there's Mayan, there's, Western. I do Western, so I look at the tropical zodiac. I come from a psychological and a spiritual perspective.
Right.
There's so many astrologers and they all have their lens and they have what they're good at. There's
Right.
really good political astrologers and financial astrologers, and that's not my forte.
Okay.
My forte is psychology and spirituality. And I look at the chart, like for example, like a natal chart, your
Right.
natal chart,
Mhm.
as a snapshot of what your soul chose to come in with. And you can see kind of themes that are going to come up in your natal chart and personality traits
Mhm.
and soul's evolution, in the natal chart. And then for me, just where the planets and stars are right now and the aspects they're making with each other or with your natal chart, um, kind of shows the energies that are being brought into your life.
Okay.
I feel like everything's related. So,
Okay.
when the moon changes signs or a star goes supernova, I don't think that that is separate or different from me or has no impact on me. Like,
Okay.
it's all like the mirror kind of
Right. It's
effect.
interrelated.
Yes.
Yes.
So that to me is how astrology works. Some
Okay.
people are like, astrology, it's all about fate. It's saying these planets control you. And I don't believe they control you. I think we impact them as much as they
Right.
impact us.
Right. And we use them as a tool because it really is a tool to for our everyday life
Yes.
and and it assists you.
Yes.
Like if you have a really good astrologer like I do, um, Divine, she is my astrologer. What I understand from astrology is that when you do a reading, and especially a transiting reading,
Mhm.
I know what it kind of gives it. Let's say something is going on in my life, and if I understand that maybe there's some kind of planetary activity, then I can include that
Mhm.
as part of. Oh, this is something. This is my an opportunity for me to work through something, whatever that issue is.
Yes.
And if I hadn't have known about um, that this was a potential,
Mhm.
then I would have a harder time with whatever it is that I'm dealing with.
Yes.
But if I have an understanding about it, then um, it just gives me some freedom
Yeah,
around it, right?
and a context too. Like I
Mhm.
just had a client the other day who she was going through all kinds of stuff,
Right.
and when I explained it, she's like, "Oh my gosh, I'm not going crazy," and
Right.
it made her, like it explained things to her and explained why it was happening
Right.
and what the lessons were that were trying to come in, and
Right.
all of a sudden it was like, it's not like it changed the situation that she was going through,
Right.
but it gave her meaning around the
Right.
situation. And pretty much what everybody's looking for on planet Earth is
Right.
meaning,
Right.
and
Exactly.
love, meaning and love.
Exactly. But then you start to think that it's not happening to you that you're actually part of. When
Yes.
you have an understanding that this is going on and this is potential, it explains what perhaps why something's happening now.
Yes.
and then you can. For me, it's a lot easier to move through challenges gracefully.
Yes.
And I don't get all like, oh, I can't believe this is happening. But I just read your blogs because you have wonderful blogs on what's going on in the skies today, and that helps me.
Yeah.
It kind of just gives me some comfort that okay, I can do this. I'm not alone because if it's occurring for me, it's occurring for everyone
Yeah.
in some area of their life.
To whatever degree they're conscious
Right,
of
exactly,
it. Yeah.
exactly. So that's astrology. That's the beginning of astrology, and it's so in depth. It's really hard to, do a 20-minute show.
Oh yeah.
So
I mean, I've been studying it for 15 years, and I will be studying it for my entire life.
Right. I was going to ask you about that. When did you decide to be do astrologer? Yeah.
Well, it was really interesting. I mean, I've been studying it for 15 years. I got into it when I was 18, accidentally. Somebody gave me like I think I even read, I read a horoscope in like Vanity Fair or something like that, like some cosmopolitan. I was reading and I was like, oh, this resonates. And I was raised born again Christian, so this wasn't a part of my awareness. And so I was like, there's something to this. So then I started, for me, when I'm interested in something, then all of a sudden I just become a crazy researcher. Like I just have this intense, like I want to know everything about something. And you can see that in my chart. And and so I got into it and I just started studying voraciously, like all these books and asking everybody for their birth information and looking at people's charts, and it was just very exciting. And then I went to grad school like 3 years ago, Pacifica Graduate Institute, for my, I was in the doctorate program for depth psychology. And for 1 year we needed to do field work, and the thing I was going to do actually fell through, and last minute this astrologer who I had this ongoing email relationship with offered me an internship. And he's like, intern with me, it could be your field work. So he taught me how to write a horoscope. His name is Eric Francis. He's an amazing astrologer. And he's also a journalist, a political journalist. He's one of those political astrologers.
Right.
He's great. And he taught me how to write a horoscope, and then like a couple months later, my friend was releasing a new spiritual website, evolvethe.com, and he's like, be the astrologer. And I was like, I've never done that before. He's like, you can do it.
Yeah.
So I just started writing a column. I had like, my 30 friends reading it, and then over the year, it just kind of exploded.
Right.
And I had other people ask me to be on their sites, and then people started writing me, asking me to do readings, and I had never done readings for money before. I'd done them for my friends. So I just started doing readings. It just sort of kind of just came onto me.
Right.
And it was a calling.
Yeah, it definitely was a calling.
And I had some resistance just because I was, I kind of felt like I needed to know everything about astrology before I could call myself an astrologer.
Right.
And then I realized you can never know everything about astrology.
Right. And you probably learn every time you do someone's chart. You probably learn something new as well, right?
Yeah, well, I'll learn things that there'll always be something I learn in any kind of interaction.
Right.
Oh, helicopter. And then I also learn from my own experience, going through transits that I've never gone through before, at least not consciously, not being aware of it. So it constantly deepens my standing. So yeah, that's how I got into it.
And because you do writing as well, right? And we talked a little bit about your work with the divine. Excuse me, I have a little bug here.
Yeah.
Like the divine feminine.
Oh yes.
Right. And I wanted you to talk a little bit about that because it's related to your astrology work in a lot of ways.
Yes.
And I know that from my reading with you, that she showed up. The divine feminine shows up. So I want to talk a little bit about the divine feminine in your work and the shadow.
Yes. So that's where my psychological part, depth psychological interest meets the spiritual and astrological. Carl Jung, who's somebody that we study quite a bit, who I love, talks about the shadow and the unconscious. And I have a special reading I do called the shadow reading, where I look specifically at the shadow and the unconscious in the chart.
I haven't had that one yet, but that's on my list, definitely.
Yeah. That's actually one I even have it on my website. I ask people to have the in-depth natal reading first before we get into the shadow, because first of all, it's foundational, like to really know your chart.
Right.
And then I build on it. But also the shadow reading is looking at all the shadow. I mean, it's not, it's like, it can be intense.
Yeah.
And so I really want people to be ready for
Right.
that and know my style of reading and
Right.
whatnot. But anyhow, so I do a shadow reading, and I look at the shadow and the unconscious. And another thing that I'm really drawn to, I've done a lot of writing and research on, is the dark feminine.
The dark feminine.
So the divine feminine is just like the divine masculine. It's the archetype of feminine or masculine. And my understanding is that there's the light and the dark aspects of her and him.
Right.
And the dark feminine, first of all, the light feminine is pure, chaste, virginal, self-sacrificing, sweet, innocent. You know, all the qualities of what you would consider the light feminine.
Right.
And you could see it maybe in the Virgin Mary. You know,
Okay.
where she was a virgin. She never had sex, but
Right.
she gave birth. The dark feminine is empowered, fierce, intense, magical, totally connected to her body and her sexuality. The dark feminine would be like Mary Magdalene,
Right.
or Kali, or Lilith.
Right.
And dark does not mean evil. Dark
Right.
just means that which is in the dark. Or, you know, it's like if you
Right.
look at a tree, there's a tree right here in front of us. The top of it, what's all in the light, is the light. And what's down in the roots underneath the ground that we can't see is the dark.
Okay.
But you can't have a tree without the roots.
Right.
And so the dark feminine is really important archetype for me personally, but also for everyone. And because we've been living in patriarchal masculine consciousness for over 2,000 years, there's actually been a demonization of the dark feminine. Like the light feminine has been considered good, you know, and it's like women, if they're the light feminine, if they're beautiful and pure and sweet, then they're good. But if you're intense, or if you're powerful, if you're fierce, or if you're connected to your sexuality,
Right.
there's been a lot of like, you know,
Resistance to that and demonization
and putting
of it.
it in the, you know, in the heading of evil or
Right.
wrong or whatever. You know, if you think back to however many hundreds of years ago they had the burning of the witches,
Right.
and a lot of those women who were considered witches were fierce, dark, feminine, powerful, you know, healers. A lot of healing energy comes through the dark feminine. So I'm very drawn to this. It shows up in my chart. And I look at it in the chart. There's many indicators of the dark feminine, and I look at that and bring that into the natal reading if
Right.
it shows up,
Yeah.
and then look at
Yeah.
it even deeper in the shadow
Yeah,
reading.
exactly.
Yeah.
Because it showed up in mine.
Yeah.
Quite a bit.
Yeah.
Pretty intensely. So I'm drawn to her too.
And it's an archetype that sometimes I'll see it in the chart, and I'll laugh too. I'm prepping somebody's chart, and I'll just see it so powerful. I'm like, well, no wonder they came to me to get a
That's
reading.
right.
And then I'll explain it, and they'll have never heard of it before.
Right.
But it'll resonate, and
Right.
it just like makes so much sense. You know, this archetype and it being really powerful in their chart, never having known about it, and then all of a sudden it's like a light bulb goes on.
Yep. And then it's you can understand yourself. That's what I love about
Yes.
the readings, is that it helps you have a deeper understanding of who you are
Yes.
and what you might be here for.
Yes.
You know, kind of gives you, shines that light, like you said.
Mhm.
Well, I'm interested in the shadow and the dark feminine,
Mhm.
and we talk a little bit about how the dark shows up in our lives, like, you know, in our relationships with other people, within ourselves, and so we're in the mirrors that they are for us. And could you talk a little bit about so how would you recognize dark feminine energy occurring in your, you know,
In your life.
yeah,
Well,
how would
my
that show up?
my understanding of the dark feminine, first of all, in her balanced, like integrated form, is she is fierce, she's intense, she's powerful. It's like when you're in that moment where you just, you know, feel your feminine energy, but feel it as being strong and capable, almost like the, you know, the mama Black Panther who's protecting her young.
Right.
Like there's this fierceness around the dark feminine, and also she's super in touch with her intuition,
Okay.
magical capacity, psychic. You know, it's like the kind of qualities that were considered magic and evil, and that's why
Right.
the witches were burned at the
Right.
stake. So that's her in her healed and whole form.
Okay.
In her shadowy form, so when we have this archetype profoundly, you know, shown in our chart, but we're not integrating it, there's kind of two ways it can go, and one is total victimization, like complete rejection or unconsciousness around this power and this fierceness, and totally going into victim place.
Okay.
And, you know, I mean, that can go anywhere from just feeling the victim in your life and various situations to even really shadowy and intense experiences and relationships, or just some really dark stuff can come up with the dark feminine when it's not healed. And then the other end is when you go completely opposite, 180, and become full of anger and rage, particularly at the masculine, around the being repressed or being rejected or not acknowledged. And then you've got women who are very dark feminine, but they're just full of anger and they hate men, and and they're wanting power and control over men, and a lot of times that'll manifest sexually, like sexual power, like being sexually provocative or seductive and trying to have control through those kind of
That's
means.
how they manipulate.
Yeah, the shadow qualities of a dark feminine is very manipulative and very seductive. But this is unhealed dark feminine. Healed dark feminine is, she's in her own power, and she doesn't need to have power over anybody else, because she knows who she is, and she knows that she is fully capable, and she doesn't need to manipulate to get anything.
And it's understanding, when you do any kind of shadow work, then there's that understanding. You go in and you actually communicate with those aspects that are unhealed. So because at some point they're wanting to get attention, and that's part. They want to be, whatever that aspect is, it's trying to get your attention, especially if it's acting out.
It's like a child.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, it's like a little child is like shrieking for your attention, and then as soon as you get it, they smile.
Yeah,
mommy.
That's right. Exactly.
Like my baby.
Well, when we talk about the dark feminine, it can also, when you look at a person's chart, you can also see maybe past lives, or where they're actually bringing it in, maybe into this lifetime, to actually have a healing around it.
Oh, yeah. You typically, if you're going to have a lot of dark feminine to show up in your chart, this is a theme that's come with you through lives. And a lot of people in this life, in this era, are coming in to heal that, because the divine feminine in her dark and light forms are coming back in. There's a need to bring her back into balance. Like the way we've been doing the world recently for the last couple millennia is not working. The patriarchal masculine, like, focus on perfection, focus on conquering, focus on war and more kind of aggressive, going after things without the balance of the feminine, receptive, being aware of the bigger picture, thinking of other people kind of thing, is not working. So she needs to come back in and get balanced for everybody. And so a lot of people who have this archetype, my feeling and understanding is that the dark feminine is the most disconnected from that balance. The light feminine has healing as well, but she has been allowed in the consciousness to a certain degree, as long as you're pure, chaste, sweet, self-sacrificing, you don't try and assert yourself. You're good, and you're considered, beautiful and lovely. So there's like this bug is like,
I know, he likes us today.
So yeah, my understanding is it's the dark feminine that's kind of the bigger picture of the healing, and so those of us who have this archetype are really being called to heal that and bring it to consciousness, so that I believe that the healing you do for yourself, you then kind of unlock the ability for that healing to happen in the world. And the more of us that do that, reaches a tipping point.
And it kind of raises the consciousness of other people. And just having conversation with you today about the dark feminine and the divine feminine, because like you said, it is about healing all those aspects. And it isn't just women. I mean, men have the divine, the feminine and the masculine. I mean, that's the whole point. We're both masculine and feminine.
We all have yin and yang within. We all have dark and light. We all have an ego. We all have
and so we hear women talking about the dark feminine, but it shows up in men as well.
Yes, and maybe more women tend to talk about it because it's a very empowering thing to work through and heal. But there have been many men that I've come in contact with through my readings and through. I actually used to have a group on Facebook called Healing the Wounded Dark Feminine. It got removed from Facebook, which was so ironic because it's very like.
Must have been the goddess pictures on there.
Yeah, I think there were some somebody was offended by the group and marked it as offensive or whatever. And Facebook just took it down, and they didn't give me any option to like discuss with anybody. You can never get to a live person on Facebook, so it just got. And I was at a point in my life where I had so
Mhm.
much going on, it was hard to manage the page. But we had, I think, 3,000 or
Right.
4,000 members, and a lot of great discussion on the dark feminine, and then it just got yanked.
Yeah.
And I just thought that was really synchronistic, because that's kind of what the patriarchal consciousness has been doing to the dark feminine for the last 2,000 years.
That's right. So it was, like you said, synchronistic.
Yes.
Yeah, it wasn't surprise.
Yeah.
No,
No.
no, no, no. But we still have the conversation and we still move forward
Yeah.
on it.
Yeah.
I love that. I love that. Um, you are, you have a new website.
Yes.
And I wanted, I know, and I want you to talk a little bit about that because I know that you've got your blog is there now, right, on this website?
Yeah, so I built, or I didn't build it, my web designer built a new website for me,
Okay.
and I just launched it with the recent new moon approximately 2 weeks ago. And before I had my website with information about readings, and then I had a blog on Blogger, and I kind of was in a lot of different
Mhm.
places, and so now it's kind of all on one website. It's
Right.
divineharmony.org. So divine, DIVINE, harmony, HARMONY.org. And on there, since I've had my baby, I've just been writing one thing a week.
Mhm.
It was the weekly astrology forecast, which gives a day-to-day description of the aspects that are
Right.
happening.
That's
So that's
fantastic.
still there,
Mhm.
but now on my website, and that's free content. And then I also write an astrology blog that's every several days I'll just write about the energy that's going on or
Mm.
put something out there. And that's also free content. And then I started writing my weekly horoscopes again, which were super popular before I stopped writing
yes.
them.
Very popular.
When like the last month of my pregnancy and the first 9 months, I wasn't writing them. And then I'm also writing a monthly forecast, a yearly forecast, and lunar insights, which the new moon, full moon,
Right.
the eclipses, when
Right.
we have eclipses. And I may write other stuff, I don't know. But that stuff is subscriber content. So I
Okay.
have this set up so that people can be members and have access to
Okay.
all of my writing. So I spend a lot of time writing. And when I did this all before, it was like I'd spend hours and hours each week writing, and it was, I kind of need to also be supporting
Right.
myself
Right.
financially. So
Yeah, that makes sense too. Because then there's options people have.
yeah, yes.
w-
So there's the free if you're not
Mhm.
able to or not interested, and then if you're wanting more, there's
Mhm.
it's only $9.95 a month, and then there's discounts if you purchase more.
Right.
And then there's actually a free week trial, so you can check it out for a week and see if
Right.
it's even right for you.
No, and you're back to doing readings again?
I'm doing readings again. Yes,
Okay.
I have some help with my baby a
Mhm.
couple times a week, and so I'm going to increase that as I,
Yeah.
find time to increase
That's
that. But I am doing readings again.
I love that, and I know a lot of people are going to be very happy to hear that.
Yeah, I've already been doing like the past 2 weeks. I've been
Right.
booked.
Oh, that's well. You know what? Your Divine is my finale, my season finale show, and it's been really a blessed year for me. And I want to talk a little bit about because in November this month, but this is when the show's being aired. There's some interesting astrological stuff happening. Is that true?
Yes.
Can you talk a little bit about that?
I didn't look at
Okay,
the
that's
astrology
okay.
of November.
That's okay. But I know there's 11, 11, 11. That's
Oh,
it's
yes.
a huge thing. I mean,
That's a numerological thing.
right, exactly.
Um,
But there is something. Maybe it's in October that there's like some kind of
Well, okay, when
astrological.
in Mayan astrology,
Mhm.
October 28th of this year is supposed to be, there's a lot of people who say like 2012 is the end of the Mayan calendar.
Right.
There's another Mayan perspective that actually says it's October 28th. And then we also have a comet in the sky, Comet
Yes.
Elenin,
Yes.
that is going to be making its way very close to Earth, and we're going to see it, and it's going to be super huge. And I'm pretty sure the date of that, like the closest to Earth it's going to be, is on October 28th, or maybe a little bit before.
Okay.
And there's all kinds of conspiracy theories
Right.
around that comet.
But with it already had passed by the time
Yeah.
this airs.
So if the world is still here,
That's right. Well,
which I have a feeling it will be.
Me too. I'm pretty sure. Because it is about consciousness.
Yeah, I think that
an awakening of some kind. I think.
Personally, I feel that the doomsday prophecies, and in addition, the
Right.
ones that are like, oh, we're all the good ones are going to get beamed up and put on another
Yeah.
planet. Like, I feel that's a symbolism of splitting
Yes.
the good and evil, and I don't think that's representative of wholeness or integration at all. I don't think we're going anywhere. I think we haven't actually even arrived here and rooted and dealt with the stuff we need to deal with.
Yes.
Like, that would be escaping. It's
Yes.
like, oh, let's leave this trash here and go to another place and start generating more trash there.
Right.
Like, we need to deal with, our trash.
Right. Well, I mean, it's about the journey, and really there's no end date in my mind. Like,
Yes.
there's no place to get to,
Yes.
except just keep growing,
Yes.
and moving through all of the challenges that we have. But it was, I was just always really curious about how the when the planets are transiting and the situations. I have Jupiter came into my sign.
Oh, Taurus.
Yes, in June, and so I've been really paying attention to what Jupiter's up to and how it's affecting me, and
Which is great.
yeah.
All Taurus is good.
Yeah, good. Yeah, it is, because and it's every 12 years, right?
Yes.
So-
And this year, I mean, sometimes, because when Jupiter went into Pisces, which is my rising and moon, it actually sped through Pisces, particularly through the degrees of mine, so it was very quick, but you're getting it to go retrograde, so it's
Yeah.
actually like a longer experience, and Jupiter's staying in Taurus for a year.
Right.
So it kind of depends on when he goes retrograde,
Okay.
if you get the longer version or the shorter version.
I love that.
But Jupiter brings gifts. Jupiter's all about opportunity, expansion, optimism. Whenever you got Jupiter transits, you've got stuff. It's like you're being given opportunities, and there's a kind of idealism and positivity that's infused in some area of your life, wherever it happens to be visiting. And if you're a Taurus, then you've got the Jupiter on your sun, which just starts a whole new cycle of growth and.
But it affects everyone, Jupiter. All the planets.
Yeah.
Each planet affects every single person.
Yeah.
In their chart, depending on where the activities happen.
Yes.
Which house it's happening.
Yeah,
because-
wherever Taurus falls in your chart. If you have other planets in Taurus, if your rising sign or midheaven happens to be in Taurus, so everybody's got it somewhere.
Okay. There's one. Can I ask you an astrology question?
Sure.
That I've been just curious about.
Sure.
I've been told that when you get a reading, when you get an astrology reading, there are three areas that you kind of are. They're all important, but you have your sun sign and your rising sign, and then your moon.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been told if I read an astrology, like a horoscope, that to read my sun sign and my rising.
Yeah.
Why not the moon? What happens if I read the moon? What would happen? I mean,
Well, you could read it and see if it resonates. Why
does it affect?
Because when a horoscope's written,
Okay.
so you're Taurus.
Right.
So when I write Taurus horoscopes, I assume that Taurus is in the first house.
Okay.
So I look at where all the other planets are, and I
Oh,
see
I
them
see.
activating in different houses. Like for Taurus, Pluto, who is in Capricorn, is in your 9th house, because that's where Capricorn is for Taurus.
Okay.
But your rising sign's not Taurus.
Right.
What's your rising sign again?
Cancer.
Cancer. So actually, Pluto in your rising sign chart is in your 7th house of relationship.
Oh, okay.
So
That makes sense.
you read, yes. So I recommend people read for both. In esoteric astrology, they actually say the rising sign has to do with your soul's journey.
Okay.
And so I kind of, from my own perspective, have found that a lot of times my rising sign, when I read for horoscopes, resonates even more than my sun
Right.
sign. But they both will resonate to some degree, but I find the rising sign just happens to more. So you can read for both.
Right.
The moon, you're not going to really assume that the moon is on the rising, and
Right.
that it's your rising sign is what's rising literally in your
Okay.
chart. So when you're reading for your rising sign, it's going to be literally where the planets are.
Okay.
The sun, there's just been so much history around writing sun sign horoscopes.
Right. Right.
And actually, my friend Eric Francis, the astrologer I study with, he's written a really good article on why sun sign astrology works. And
Okay.
you can Google him, Google Eric Francis sun sign astrology or sun sign horoscopes. I think you'd be able to find it. And he breaks it down scientifically and figuratively
Right.
and literally really well. But does that make sense?
Yeah.
It's like there's an assuming that your sun is in your first house, and then it breaks down where all the other houses are. And the moon, the moon for me would resonate because my moon is my rising sign,
Oh
but
yeah.
for other people whose moon's a completely different sign than their rising or
Mhm.
their sun, I would say read it and see if it resonates.
Right.
But I don't believe it will as much.
Right. Well, I have a Leo moon, and
Mhm.
so
Have you read Leo horoscopes?
I do.
And
Sometimes they resonate, sometimes they don't.
yeah,
But it's also my North Node, so I have all kinds of like
yeah,
connection to Leo
yeah,
already. But it's been interesting. I'm very curious about. I was just curious about
yeah.
that because no one had ever explained that to me. So
I remember I wrote one of the astrologers I followed a long time ago and asked them the same thing. I was like, should I read for my rising sign? And he actually told me no. And I was just like, it didn't feel right to me, so I
Right.
kept reading for it because it
Right.
would always resonate more. And so, you got to do what's right for you.
Right,
I mean, of course, you also have to keep in mind sun sign horoscopes are really limited because they're just looking at your sun or your
Right.
rising if you're reading for your rising. They don't know the rest of it. So they might tell you, oh, Jupiter, like for Taurus,
Right.
Jupiter's in your sign, you're feeling great and happy.
Right.
But they don't realize that your sun is in Cancer. It's being opposed by Pluto and squared by Uranus right now, and it's
Right.
like that's gonna overpower any Jupiter transit.
Right, exactly. So I'm not feeling if you're not feeling it, there's probably a purpose.
You got to see the rest of your chart, and
Right,
that
exactly.
you get from an actual astrologer.
Well, I have a lot of people have said, well, I don't really, it doesn't ever resonate with me. I read my sun sign, and it just, like a generic
Yeah.
sun horoscope, and they say it just doesn't. I'm not feeling it.
Yeah.
I don't. It doesn't resonate with me. So I've often said, well, have you had your chart done?
Yes.
Because that will help you understand
Yeah.
all of it, and maybe why you doesn't resonate necessarily for you.
Mhm.
So
Yes.
that's good stuff. I think I mean, we could talk forever
Yeah.
on all of these
Yes.
subjects for sure. But anyway, I have an after the show blog. I will definitely have it up. All of the things that Harmony has spoke about, I will have on after the show. So thank you for being here with me today.
Thank you.
And I think we got this one down today.
Yes.
I think so too.
Third
Thank
time's
you
the
for
charm.
being here, and I'll see you for season 2, January. All right, talk to you later.